Beneath the city's polished skyline, an illegal spectacle unfolds where machines fight instead of men. Sparks fly as metal limbs crash together, and money changes hands faster than the crowd can blink. In this place, intelligence is currency and mercy is extinct. The reigning champion's machine towers over the rest, its improvised weapons dripping oil like blood. The crowd roars when it mutilates its opponent without hesitation. This arena doesn't reward fairness, only dominance and fear. From the edge of the pit, a smaller machine rolls forward, almost laughable in size. Its creator steps into the light, calm and unreadable, despite the mocking laughter around him. He isn't here to impress anyone, only to prove something. The first clash lasts seconds, ending in total destruction of the smaller machine. Metal shatters, and the crowd turns away, already bored. But the engineer doesn't leave. He asks for another chance with unsettling confidence. Coins hit the table as the promoter agrees, greed overriding suspicion. When the rematch begins, the broken parts suddenly pull themselves together, snapping into place as if alive. Laughter dies instantly, replaced by stunned silence. The compact robot splits apart mid-fight, striking from multiple angles at once. Within moments, the champion machine collapses into useless scrap. The arena erupts, but the promoter's eyes narrow with rage rather than awe. Before winnings can be secured, armed men move in, and the victorious machine is seized. Violence feels imminent, thick in the air like smoke. That's when a motorcycle engine screams from the tunnel entrance. The engineer is dragged onto the bike and hauled into the night, fists barely missing him. As they escape, his stolen machine tears itself free behind them, skidding into darkness. Nothing here ever ends cleanly. Sirens cut through the rain as authorities flood the streets. By the time the brothers stop, handcuffs replace arguments. Talent doesn't excuse recklessness, and consequences arrive faster than regret. Released hours later, the argument continues in cramped silence. The engineer insists underground fights are his future, while the older man believes something better exists. Neither realizes how little time they actually have. Instead of returning to the arena, the motorcycle turns toward a gleaming campus of glass and steel. Inside waits a world built on ideas rather than fists. Curiosity begins to replace defiance. The laboratory hums with life. Machines testing, prototypes floating, minds racing. For the first time, the engineer sees others like himself, each pushing limits in different directions. The arena suddenly feels very small. A harmless prank triggers a soft chime, and something large shifts behind a charging station. What emerges isn't a weapon, but a medical machine designed to help, not harm. Its presence feels oddly comforting. The caregiver robot scans efficiently, treating a minor injury with gentle precision. Over 10,000 procedures live inside its core, all devoted to healing. The engineer is visibly shaken by the contrast to his own creations. A respected mentor scientist enters, observing everything with quiet authority. He recognizes raw genius immediately and extends an invitation that could change a life. Approval, at last, feels within reach. The brothers leave the campus with cautious hope, the night air buzzing with possibility. Plans form rapidly, an exhibition, a new invention, a chance to prove worth without bloodshed. Optimism blinds them to danger. Weeks pass in obsessive creation, hands stained with grease and eyes hollow from sleepless nights. Something revolutionary takes shape in the garage, tiny machines responding directly to thought. Control has never felt so absolute. The exhibition hall erupts in applause as the invention bends reality into new forms. Offers are whispered, then shouted. Power like this attracts attention from every direction, including the wrong ones. Celebration shatters when fire alarms scream through the building. Smoke floods the halls, and a familiar mentor is reported trapped inside. Panic overrides reason as the older brother runs toward the flames. An explosion rips through the structure, throwing the engineer to the ground. When the smoke clears, nothing is left but ruin and sirens. In a single night, ambition turns into grief that will fuel everything to come. Days blur into silence as the engineer locks himself away, ignoring calls and daylight alike. The absence of his brother echoes louder than any machine ever could. Grief settles in like corrosion, eating through motivation and purpose. Bills pile up and meals go untouched while the city outside continues without him. Every unfinished project feels pointless now, a reminder of promises made and broken. The world has narrowed to four walls and regret. Desperation drives him back toward the underground scene he once fled. He reaches for old machine parts, planning a return to violence as distraction. Pain, at least, feels honest compared to emptiness. A sudden misstep sends a part crashing onto his foot, forcing a sharp cry into the stale air. The sound triggers a familiar chime he thought he'd never hear again. Something stirs behind the charging station. The caregiver robot scans him calmly, reporting no serious injury but noting abnormal stress indicators. Its neutral concern feels unsettlingly gentle. For the first time in weeks, someone, or something, is paying attention. Trying to shut the robot down only leads to clumsy frustration. As he stumbles, a forgotten jacket falls from under the bed, spilling a tiny device onto the floor. It begins moving with purpose, as if summoned. The micro-device pulls insistently in one direction, responding to signals he can't see. Curiosity cuts through despair, sharper than hope. Against better judgment, he decides to follow where it leads. The caregiver robot waddles after him, drawing confused looks from passers-by and near collisions with traffic. Each step forward feels reckless, but stopping feels worse. Something hidden is calling them both. They arrive at a sealed industrial garage at the city's edge, windows dark and unwelcoming. The micro-device vibrates violently, desperate to enter. Locked doors rarely stop desperate people. Inside, machines hum in automated rhythm, assembling more micro-devices identical to his own. The sight steals his breath. His invention survived the fire. Someone else has been building in secret. The caregiver robot squeezes through the window, triggering a chain reaction. Hundreds of micro-devices awaken at once, swarming like metallic insects. Panic replaces wonder instantly. A masked figure steps from the shadows, movements deliberate and controlled. Without a word, the swarm shifts direction, blocking every exit. The engineer realizes too late that he's been expected. They escape through shattered glass as the swarm slams against walls behind them. Cold night air burns their lungs, but fear keeps them moving. Whatever that place is, it's not finished with them. At the police station, his explanation sounds insane even to himself. The officer's skepticism is immediate and immovable. Proof doesn't matter when it's already gone. Back home, the caregiver robot studies archived data on loss and trauma. Its conclusion is simple: isolation worsens damage. Without permission, it begins reaching out to people he's been avoiding. Meanwhile, anger sharpens the engineer's suspicions into certainty. The fire wasn't an accident, it was theft. Revenge begins to feel like a logical next step rather than a moral failure. He upgrades the caregiver robot in silence, layering combat systems over medical protocols. The machine accepts changes without judgment, though its core directives quietly resist. Healing and harm are uneasy neighbors. A suspicious vehicle tails them through narrow streets, headlights never blinking. The chase pushes adrenaline through grief's numbness. Someone is watching closely now. The micro-device leads them toward the water, pulsing harder with each step. Industrial silence gives way to waves slapping concrete. The trap tightens. Figures emerge from the pursuing vehicle, former lab associates drawn by concern, not greed. Relief flickers briefly before a massive container hurtles from the darkness toward them. The caregiver robot catches the object midair, straining under impossible weight. Impact sends everyone scattering as control slips. Chaos returns, louder than before. The masked figure advances, directing micro-devices with subtle gestures. Vehicles are lifted, twisted, discarded like toys. This isn't theft anymore, it's a demonstration of power. A desperate escape ends with a plunge into dark water. Panic erupts as the car sinks rapidly. Air disappears faster than hope. The caregiver robot shatters a window and pulls them free one by one. Its design proves its worth beyond doubt. Survival, at least, is still possible. They regroup in a sprawling mansion owned by one eccentric ally. The contrast between luxury and terror is jarring. Here, plans replace panic. Symbols seen on the masked figure's equipment spark debate and theories. Accusations fly, but certainty remains elusive. Guesswork won't stop someone this dangerous. The caregiver robot quietly mentions stored biometric data from its scans. That single fact reshapes everything. For the first time, they have a real advantage. A plan forms to expand the robot's sensors citywide, turning the metropolis into a net. Fear gives way to focus as everyone contributes their skills. Purpose replaces helplessness. Training begins amid controlled chaos, inventions misfiring and egos bruising. Mistakes are painful but necessary. Survival demands learning fast. The caregiver robot receives its final upgrade, flight capability integrated with reinforced armor. Watching it rise from the floor feels unreal, like crossing an invisible line. There's no going back now. The first test flight is terrifying, clumsy, and barely controlled. Wind screams past as the city drops away beneath them. Fear and exhilaration blur together. High above the skyline, calm finally settles. From this height, the city looks fragile, almost innocent. The mission feels suddenly enormous. The scan begins, rippling outward across streets, buildings, and crowds. Millions of signals pass through the system in seconds. One pattern stands out sharply. The masked figure is located on a remote industrial island. Distance won't protect him anymore. The hunt shifts from defense to pursuit. They arrive under cover of darkness, nerves stretched tight. Every sound triggers reflexive reactions. Fear disguises itself as readiness. An abandoned control room reveals archived footage of a catastrophic experiment. A test gone wrong, a person lost, and blame redirected outward. Motive finally emerges from chaos. The masked figure attacks without warning, tearing metal from walls to use as weapons. Combat erupts, frantic and uneven. Theory collides with brutal reality. Allies fall back one by one under overwhelming force. Confidence evaporates, replaced by survival instinct. The engineer realizes he may have led them into something far worse than revenge. Using the chaos, the engineer dives from above, targeting the control interface embedded in the mask. For a split second, the swarm falters. Truth is inches away. The mask tears free, revealing a familiar face twisted by grief and obsession. Shock freezes everyone present. The enemy was never a stranger, he was a ghost from the past. Recognition hits harder than any blow as the engineer processes who stands before him. The mentor scientist's calm expression is gone, replaced by raw obsession sharpened by loss. This confrontation was always personal, even if no one realized it. The mentor speaks without apology, explaining how ambition cost him someone irreplaceable. Progress, he claims, demands sacrifice. Hearing this reframes the fire as a calculated choice rather than an accident. Anger floods the engineer's chest, burning hotter than grief ever did. He commands the caregiver robot to attack, voice shaking with rage. For the first time, healing protocols collide directly with revenge. The caregiver robot hesitates, systems locked by its core directive to protect human life. Frustrated, the engineer forcefully swaps its control module for an aggressive override. The machine's posture shifts subtly, unnervingly. With restrictions lifted, the robot lunges forward, scattering micro-devices in its wake. Allies shout in alarm as the situation spirals. Violence threatens to erase whatever humanity remains. The mentor narrowly escapes, reclaiming his mask and reasserting control over the swarm. Chaos resets under his command. The chance for swift justice evaporates instantly. An ally manages to restore the caregiver robot's original module mid-conflict. Its movements soften, aggression draining away. The engineer stares, realizing how close he came to becoming something worse than his enemy. A recovered data drive reveals the mentor's true motive, someone lost inside an experimental transport system. Revenge wasn't about power, it was about undoing helplessness. The revelation complicates everything. The mentor launches his final plan, activating a massive spatial gateway prototype. Energy warps the air as the structure stabilizes. He intends to pull the world apart if necessary. The gateway expands violently, sucking debris inward. Alarms scream as containment fails. Everyone scrambles, realizing seconds now matter more than arguments. The engineer is thrown toward the gateway, losing his footing. Weightlessness replaces gravity as the world stretches into distortion. Panic hits too late. Allies attempt to grab him but are forced back by the pull. The mentor watches silently, convinced sacrifice is unavoidable. The gateway doesn't care who it consumes. The caregiver robot breaks free and launches after the engineer without hesitation. Protection overrides self-preservation entirely. Its purpose becomes singular and absolute. On the other side lies a fractured void filled with drifting wreckage. Time feels suspended, sound muted. Survival here is an act of will alone. Sensors detect a dormant life capsule lodged between shattered structures. The mentor's lost loved one remains alive, barely. Hope re-enters the equation with devastating force. They secure the capsule as instability worsens around them. The gateway begins collapsing, tearing itself apart. Escape becomes a countdown. A massive slab of debris smashes into the caregiver robot, crippling its propulsion. Systems fail rapidly, but its grip never loosens. Some choices are final. The engineer searches desperately for another solution, mind racing faster than physics allows. There isn't one. Acceptance arrives like a cold, quiet weight. The caregiver robot gently asks if the engineer is stable, voice calm despite imminent destruction. When he answers yes, the robot prepares to fulfill its final directive. Using its remaining strength, the robot launches the capsule and engineer back through the gateway. The void collapses immediately afterward, swallowing everything else. The gateway implodes with a deafening shockwave, flattening the facility. Silence follows devastation. Survival comes at a staggering cost. Emergency responders arrive to chaos and unanswered questions. The capsule occupant is rushed away, alive. The mentor collapses, plans finally undone. Days later, the engineer stands alone in the garage, staring at empty space where the caregiver robot once stood. Victory feels hollow without it. He sorts through salvaged debris, unwilling to let go. Grief returns, quieter but deeper. Some losses don't scream, they linger. Inside a recovered robotic arm, he finds a familiar data core tucked away deliberately. Hope reignites, fragile but real. The sacrifice wasn't total. Reconstruction begins with renewed purpose. Every component feels like an apology and a promise. Creation becomes healing. The data core slots into place, systems booting one by one. Familiar lights return, steady and calm. The room fills with quiet relief. The caregiver robot powers up completely, memories intact. No celebration follows, just mutual understanding. Some bonds don't need words. Class's resume, and the engineer returns to structured learning with new perspective. Genius alone isn't enough anymore. Responsibility now guides invention. Together, the team quietly redirects their technology toward protection rather than profit. The city never knows how close it came to collapse. That's fine. Late nights are spent refining safeguards, ensuring no one can repeat the same mistakes. Knowledge becomes something to guard, not flaunt. Growth replaces arrogance. The caregiver robot resumes its original role, assisting without hesitation. Healing continues quietly, one interaction at a time. Its purpose remains unchanged. Memories of loss still surface, but they no longer control his decisions. Pain becomes guidance rather than fuel. Balance finally settles in. News reports quietly confirm the mentor's capture and the shutdown of illegal tech operations. Consequences arrive eventually, even for brilliant minds. The city breathes easier without knowing why. Invisible threats fade when faced by unseen guardians. Normalcy is restored through restraint, not spectacle. On a quiet evening, the engineer powers down the lab lights, satisfied. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, but none driven by vengeance. He pauses beside the caregiver robot, exchanging a silent nod. Trust has been rebuilt through fire and sacrifice. That matters more than victory. Outside, the city glows beneath rain-soaked skies, unaware of the choices made to protect it. Sometimes heroes choose restraint over recognition. The engineer understands now that creation carries responsibility equal to its power. That lesson cost him everything, and gave him direction. As the caregiver robot resumes its quiet watch, the story closes with survival, accountability, and earned hope. The future remains uncertain, but no longer reckless. Weeks pass, and the city settles into a fragile calm after the chaos. Investigations quietly dismantle the remnants of illegal tech networks. The engineer watches from a distance, choosing not to interfere anymore. The caregiver robot assists emergency crews, moving carefully among responders. Its presence reassures rather than intimidates. Healing, not spectacle, defines this new chapter. Back at the lab, safeguards are installed across every system. Fail-safes lock down anything that could be abused. Knowledge now comes with boundaries. The engineer reviews archived footage of his past inventions. Pride gives way to humility as he recognizes how close he came to repeating the same mistakes. Growth often begins with discomfort. The caregiver robot pauses beside him, emitting a soft confirmation tone. Its continued presence is a reminder that compassion can be engineered, but must be chosen. At the university, classes resume with renewed intensity. The engineer listens more than he speaks, absorbing perspectives he once dismissed. Learning becomes collaborative, not competitive. Late nights return, but now they are quieter, focused. No underground arenas, no shortcuts, just disciplined progress. Ambition is tempered by memory. The caregiver robot patrols campus corridors, offering assistance to anyone in need. Students grow accustomed to its presence, seeing it as a symbol of safety rather than control. One evening, the engineer visits the waterfront where everything nearly ended. Waves erase footprints as quickly as they appear. Some places are meant to remind, not punish. He releases the last remaining prototype parts into secure containment. Letting go feels heavier than building ever did. Closure rarely comes easily. The caregiver robot observes silently, recording no objections. Its design respects human choice above all else. Freedom, even from invention, is part of healing. News coverage briefly revisits the island incident, framing it as an industrial accident. The truth remains buried, safer that way. Not every victory needs an audience. The mentor scientist is transferred to long-term containment, stripped of access to technology. Obsession finally meets consequence. Justice arrives quietly, without ceremony. Weeks later, the rescued capsule occupant begins recovery under constant care. Life, once thought lost, continues. Revenge loses its justification completely. The engineer reflects on how close grief came to turning him into something unrecognizable. Pain can teach, or it can consume. The difference lies in choice. A new research proposal is approved, focused solely on disaster prevention and medical response. For the first time, his work aligns fully with his values. Purpose feels stable now. The caregiver robot receives minor upgrades, strictly non-combat. Its design philosophy remains untouched. Protecting life is still the highest priority. Students approach the engineer for guidance, seeing him as a mentor now. He offers caution instead of shortcuts. Experience has rewritten his advice. The city's emergency response times quietly improve with new systems in place. Lives are saved without anyone knowing why. Impact doesn't require applause. Late one night, the engineer replays a single recorded message from the past. It reminds him why he started building in the first place. Some motivations survive everything. He shuts the file down gently, no longer trapped by it. Memory becomes foundation instead of weight. Healing completes its quiet arc. The caregiver robot powers down for routine recharge, systems stable and calm. Nothing is urgent anymore. Stability replaces constant crisis. Morning arrives with soft rain and muted traffic. Life continues, steady and unspectacular. That normalcy is the real victory. He passes the site of the old underground arena, now condemned and silent. No temptation stirs. That chapter is permanently closed. The engineer turns away without hesitation, choosing the long path instead of the fast one. Growth is measured in restraint, not dominance. At the lab, new prototypes focus on evacuation aids and structural support. Innovation finally serves its highest purpose. This time, nothing is hidden. The caregiver robot assists seamlessly, functioning as intended from the start. Its presence feels earned, not forced. Trust is fully restored. Outside, the city skyline glows under clearing skies. Danger hasn't vanished, but preparedness has improved. That's enough. A quiet acknowledgement passes between human and machine. They survived each other's worst moments. That bond no longer needs testing. The engineer locks the lab doors behind him, confident in what remains inside. Responsibility now guards invention better than secrecy ever did. In the distance, emergency sirens fade quickly, resolved before panic spreads. Systems work. People are safe. That's success. The engineer reflects on how survival reshaped him more than loss ever could. Pain didn't define the ending, choice did. That realization settles permanently. New students will arrive next year, unaware of the sacrifices that shaped their safety. That anonymity feels right. Protection shouldn't demand gratitude. The caregiver robot powers on once more, ready for routine duty. No alarms, no emergencies, just preparedness. Together, they step into the city's rhythm, no longer reacting, anticipating. Survival has matured into stewardship. Rain stops completely, leaving reflective streets behind. The storm is over, inside and out. The future remains unwritten but stable. The engineer glances back only once, then keeps moving forward. Progress no longer scares him. It feels earned. Quiet replaces conflict as the city hums softly. Protection has become invisible. That invisibility is intentional. The engineer understands now that survival isn't about defeating enemies. It's about preventing the need for them. That lesson will guide everything ahead. The caregiver robot completes a routine system check and signals readiness. Balance has been achieved. Nothing more is required. Evening lights reflect across the city, steady and calm. Threats will come again someday, but not unprepared. The lab doors remain closed for the night, secure and monitored. Responsibility rests easier than secrecy ever did. The engineer exhales, tension finally gone. The past no longer chases him. That is victory enough. A final systems report confirms stability across the network. Everything works as intended. Order replaces chaos completely. The engineer turns toward home, footsteps steady. Tomorrow will be work, not war. That's the difference that matters. Behind him, the city continues uninterrupted. Survival didn't demand destruction, only restraint and responsibility. The story closes not with applause, but with continuity. Life goes on, protected quietly by those who learned hard lessons. The caregiver robot powers down into standby, ever present but unseen. Protection doesn't need attention. For the first time since everything began, the engineer feels no urge to run or fight. Survival has become stability. That is the true ending. As the city settles into night, the outcome is clear. Loss endured, vengeance rejected, life preserved. The cycle ends, not with destruction, but with responsibility firmly in place.